This is a production of Cornell University.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Swegarden. I'm a PhD student in the section of horticulture. Today I'm kind of talking about one of my last projects in my dissertation, and quite frankly one I'm still working through a little bit. If you were at the SIPS recruitment weekend, this is a repeat, so my apologies. However, I appreciate any feedback that you might have from the project. I work with Dr. Philip Griffiths in Geneva in an applied vegetable breeding program, and we work on a variety of different crops, but we focus primarily on the brassica crops, including broccoli and cabbage. And for my dissertation specifically, I've been focusing on the leafy brassicas, which include the popular kale and collard. And when I first arrived to our breeding program, I was quite frankly, overwhelmed by the diversity that we had when it came to consumer and kind of end user quality traits. I was looking at the leafy brassica germplasm in our program, and I looked at the variety of leaf morphologies and sizes and colors, and quite frankly, it felt pretty chaotic to me. I didn't really understand how to contextualize it within a market setting or within a market context. And I still, to this day, even after a few years, have questions about how we introduce some of that diversity from our breeding program into markets, which forms from our breeding program might resonate with consumers, and then also how we kind of sidestep already inherent biases that any consumers or end users might already have due to prior product familiarity, if that makes sense. So there's all my philosophical questions for today. But to kind of organize the plant material and my brain to some extent, what I did in 2017 was develop a diallel mating design. This is a common breeding mating scheme that's used typically to understand the genetic underpinnings of quantitative traits. But this I thought that I could apply this breeding scheme in the context of consumer preference. And so what I did was I went back to our germplasm, and I kind of selected leaf types that were readily distinct, and distinct enough so that we could almost call them different market classes. And I ended up with 8 different market classes. So you can kind of see like an iconic curly kale, you can see like a collard and a Tuscan, and then there's also types that don't really have a name yet. But what I did with these 8 different parents and market classes was that I crossed them in all possible cross combinations to develop a hybrid progeny set. And those hybrids are essentially complements of each of the parents. But you can use this design to identify useful combinations using performance estimates. And you can also kind of gauge the breeding value in some ways of the parental types too, and their usefulness in your breeding program. So you can look at it at a very specific level, a cross by cross level, or you could kind of look at the general breeding value of each parent in multiple crosses too. And so I say we use performance estimates, but you're like, performance estimates of what? And this is where the consumer preference sets in. And so what I did with all of these progeny and the parents was that I imaged them, and I've put them into an online survey format. And so I'll be distributing an online consumer preference survey in a balanced and complete block design to a large number of consumers, asking 2 primary questions. One is, how much do you prefer or how much do you like this leaf type? And then how familiar is it to you? Have you seen it before? And then it can also, through the survey, ask other questions about demographics or consumption patterns to kind of get an idea of who's participating in the study too. So that's the main focus of this online survey, but I can also use this diallel in lots of other settings. So I've regenerated all the seed this winter for field phenotyping this summer and fall. And then I've also just got back some genotyping by sequencing data that will begin to give us just a brief introduction into some of the genetic architecture of any of the traits that we do phenotype. And it'll also help us understand some of the population structure within our program, because it really hasn't been evaluated thus far from a genetic perspective. But really what I expect to see or some of the outcomes, is clarity, right? Hopefully at the end of this dissertation, some clarity comes along. But one of my working hypotheses is that those parents that have high genetic combining, general combining ability, that perform well from that perspective, are also highly correlated with familiar types. So that is, people were highly preferring those types that they think that they already knew, if that makes any sense. So like an iconic curly kale type would likely rate pretty highly. But that's one of my working hypotheses. And then any that perform well from a specific combining ability perspective might provide incentive for diversity or a really novel new variety or something like that. But really, this project is meant to guide our breeding program and help us understand what leaf characteristics might be important to consumers in the future. So that is that. Thank you. I'll take any questions. Any questions? Right. So question was, have I incorporated any flavor characteristics? So a lot of my previous work has been in conjunction with the Sensory Evaluation Center. So just wrapped up a multi-year study kind of evaluating flavor and quality from a qualitative standpoint and from a quantitative standpoint. And there's a diverse amount of flavor characteristics we could look at. But this would just tackle the appearance component, which is also one of the first kind of introductions any consumer has to a new product. Yeah.
In your dialogue crosses, what was your favorite and what would you name it?
Oh, I don't think I get naming rights. I mean, I guess I haven't talked to Griff about it, but he's Welsh, and so he's got all these Welsh names that he wants to name everyone. But I think we have a cross combination between like a yellow cabbage collard that's a really light looking leaf type, and then we've got a deep purple colored leaf type as well that is a result of selection for increased anthocyanins as part of a natural color project. But across those two, and we get a really pigmented vein with a nice contrasting leaf type. So I think that would be my favorite. Maybe call it sunset or something like that. I don't know. We'll leave that to the other creative department.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.